I think we should do a DNA test, just for peace of mind.
We will do the test. But if that child is yours, this wedding is over.
2 days before my wedding, a white envelope sat on a table between us. Plain, quiet, ordinary, but that envelope was about to end everything. We were the envy of everyone. Not the quiet kind people hide behind smiles, the loud kind, the kind that fills rooms with laughter, admiration, and whispers of God, when? The whole was paid for. The Our Show AB had already been distributed. The caterers were arguing over menu portions. My bridesmaids couldn't stop posting countdown videos. There was even a message pinned at the top of our family group chat. This one will shake the city. And me? I stood in front of the mirror some evenings. One hand resting gently on my growing belly, the other adjusting the fabric of my dress, smiling, because it felt like life had finally aligned. A wedding and a child, arriving at the same time. 2 blessings, 1 future. I was wrong. There was a time David used to say things like, "If anyone doubts you, they are doubting me." I remember that day clearly. We were at a small gathering. Someone made a careless joke, something about modern women, loyalty and trust. Before I could even react, David stepped in. His voice calm, firm. I trust her completely. That's not even a conversation. I fell in love with him all over again that night. I believed that version of him. Completely. That was my first mistake. Not loving him. Believing that love in a man is permanent. So when he spoke that day, it didn't just shock me. It broke something I didn't know could break. We were sitting in his car. No tension, no argument. Just a quiet evening after visiting the decorator. Then he said it, casually, like he was discussing the weather. "I think we should do a DNA test." At first, I thought I misheard him. I even laughed. But he didn't laugh back. He kept his eyes on the steering wheel. "I just want peace of mind," he added. Peace of mind. Such a clean phrase. Such a dangerous one. Because here is what peace of mind actually meant. It meant that somewhere in the back of David's thoughts, he had already written a version of this story where I was guilty. He just needed science to confirm he was wrong. That is not love. That is surveillance with a ring attached. In that moment, something shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly, like a door closing inside me, because I realized something I couldn't unsee. The man I was about to marry didn't see a partner. He saw a possibility of betrayal, a case waiting to be verified. He saw a suspect. The conversation didn't stay between us. It never does. Not in families like ours. Soon there was a meeting. Chairs arranged, faces tight, air heavy. My father sat forward, elbows on his knees. My mother beside him, fingers locked together. David's parents across from us. Silent. Too silent. "You are insulting my daughter," my father said finally, his voice low but shaking. David didn't raise his voice. That was his style. Measured, controlled. "If there's nothing to hide," he said, "why is everyone so emotional?" The room changed. That sentence didn't just land, it spread like smoke. Let me explain what that sentence was. It was not a question. It was a trap. If you're innocent, you'll comply. If you refuse, you're suspicious. If you're angry, you're guilty. It is the oldest trick in the book of people who want to control you while appearing reasonable. He turned my family's dignity into evidence against me, and the room let him. From the corner of my eye, I saw the reactions. An aunt adjusting her wrapper, whispering under her breath. A cousin avoiding my gaze. Someone muttering quietly. "These things don't come from nowhere." David's family said nothing. But silence has a language, and I understood it perfectly. I cried that night until my eyes burned. The next morning, I couldn't recognize my own face in the mirror. The makeup artist who came for a trial session paused when she saw me. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. I nodded, but I didn't answer. My phone wouldn't stop lighting up. "Are you all right?" "We heard something. Call me." I ignored them all, because I didn't even know how to explain what was happening. The man who once defended me without hesitation now needed evidence to stand beside me. Days passed. The pressure didn't reduce. If anything, it grew. The wedding date was approaching. Final payments were due. Relatives were already planning their travel. The pastor had called twice about final counselling. Everything was moving forward, except us. Then, one evening, I stopped crying. It wasn't a decision. It just ended. I sat alone in my room. The silence felt different this time. Not heavy, clear. The clock ticked steadily on the wall. I wiped my face, stood up, and for the first time since all this began, I felt steady. When I walked into the next meeting, I wasn't the same woman who had been crying days before. Even my mother noticed. She reached for my hand. "Amara." I squeezed it gently. "I'm okay." Then I looked at David, directly. "We will do the DNA test," I said. Relief flickered across his face. Just for a second. Then I continued. "But if that child is yours?" I paused. Not for effect, but because I wanted him to hear every word clearly. "This wedding is over." The room went cold. Someone gasped. My mother whispered my name again, this time in shock. David blinked, confused, thrown off balance for the first time. "I don't understand," he said. "I know," I replied calmly. "That's the problem." Because in that moment, I wasn't negotiating anymore. I wasn't defending myself. I was setting a boundary. I wasn't just testing the baby. I was measuring what was already broken. A woman is not a used car you inspect before purchase. She is a soul you choose to trust before doubt ever enters the room. David had already failed that test. The lab just hadn't told him yet. The test was scheduled, quick, clinical, efficient. And then we waited. The envelope arrived on a Friday afternoon, 2 days before the wedding that was never going to happen. White, plain, it sat on the table between us, unopened. No one rushed. Even the clock seemed louder. Tick, tick, tick. David picked it up. His hands were shaky. Mine weren't. He opened it, scanned the paper, then stopped. 99.9%, he said. Certain? Undeniable? Final? Relief washed over his face instantly. He laughed softly at first, then with more confidence, like a man released from a burden. "I knew it," he said quickly. "I just needed to be sure. Now we can move forward. Everything is fine." He reached for my hand. I looked at it. That hand. The same hand that once held mine with certainty. Now reaching out after doubt. I didn't take it. His hand stayed in the air for a second too long, before slowly dropping. I searched inside myself for anger, for relief, for something. But what I found was silence. The result gave him peace, but it confirmed something for me. I was already gone. "I've called the caterers," I said quietly. They can keep the deposit. His smile faded. The decorators too, I continued. Everything is cancelled. Amara. His voice cracked slightly. You're overreacting. I shook my head. Slowly. No, I said. I'm responding. Because this wasn't about the test anymore. It never really was. It was about what made the test necessary in the first place. If you need a laboratory to confirm your own child is yours, then trust was never the foundation of this relationship. Suspicion was. And I refuse to build a home on suspicion. He still comes sometimes, stands outside my gate. Rain or no rain. One evening, it was pouring heavily. The kind of rain that makes everything blur. He stood there, soaked, calling my name. His voice breaking. Neighbours watched from their windows. Curtains shifting slightly. Curiosity wrapped in silence. I made a mistake, he shouted. Please, let's fix this. Inside the house, it was quiet. I sat on the edge of my bed, an ultrasound picture in my hand, my breathing steady, my mind clear, because there was something he still didn't understand. If that result had been negative, I said softly to myself, he wouldn't be outside begging. He would be inside, judging. And that truth settled everything. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. I would rather raise my child with dignity than build a home where I must constantly prove I deserve to be trusted. Weeks later, he tried to fight for custody. People encouraged him. Don't let her take your child. You have rights. So we met again, this time in a courtroom. Different setting, same silence. He looked at me differently now, not with doubt, not with confidence, with uncertainty. When it was my turn to speak, I stood up, looked directly at him, and said, You spent months telling the world this child might not be yours. I paused, just long enough. Now you want to be his father? Which version of you should this child grow up to know? The one who doubted him before he was born? Or the one who only claimed him after a piece of paper said you could? Silence. Not the polite kind. Not the supportive kind. The kind that exposes truth. In that moment, I didn't feel like I had lost anything. Because I hadn't lost a husband. I had walked away from a life where I would have to defend my character over and over again. And in its place, I found something far more valuable, peace and a future, where my child would grow up knowing one thing, that love does not begin with suspicion. That trust is not something you earn after a test. It is something you give before doubt ever gets the chance to ask for proof. If you believe trust should come before proof, drop a 1 in the comments and subscribe. There are more stories like this one waiting for you.